Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome to our next session on budget, which is called Fixed and Flexible Budget. Fixed and Flexible Budget, or Flexed Budget. Now, what is a fixed budget? We studied that a fixed budget, as you can see, it is prepared based on a single estimated level of activity for a period. So, a fixed budget, you are doing it, it is for a period. So, first of all, you have to understand that it is for a period. And not only that, it is based on a single level of activity. Single level of activity. So, that activity can be production units, it can be on sales units, it can be on what? Labor. So, basically, that is that. It's based on just one level of activity. So, that is what you see. And it doesn't change to reflect actuals. To reflect actuals. It doesn't change. So what it is what it will be. Basically, that is that. So you see clearly that you prepare it with an anticipated level of production, or let's say sales, without any adjustment. This is key. Without any adjustment to the actual. No. And so therefore you see that it is not really adaptable when the actual sales and levels deviate from your budget. So that is that. But it is suitable if you are looking at a manufacturing environment or environments where activity levels are usually consistent. All right. So they are stable and consistent. So that is what you see. So let me give you this. For example, if you have a fixed budget, and your fixed budget is to produce, let's say, 200 units. And this 200 units is going to cost you 2,000. This is your budget. Now, let's say that the actual, after you budgeted at the end of the period, the actual you realized was that you were able to produce 300 units. And the cost of that 300 units now cost you 2,500. Now, you will compare these two costs. And at the end of the day, your conclusion will be like, okay, we budgeted to spend 2,000 and we have spent 2,500. And therefore, we have overspent. Is that not it? So you will say you have overspent 500 what? Adverse. So because it is beyond your budget, it is an adverse. But take a look at it again. Are you doing a correct comparison? Because if you check this comparison, you realize that this 2,000 was for the production of just 200 units. All right. But your production actually went to 300 units, meaning that you produce more. But isn't it obvious that if you produce more, then it means your cost should be more? But if that is so, then why would we call this an adverse? That is where the problem is. So you see that it gives a wrong comparative for the management accountant. And this is the weakness of the fixed budget, because the fixed budget does not make any adjustment to the actual levels. That is the problem. And there comes in the flexible budget or the flexed budget. So to solve this problem, we will now look at the flexed budget. The flexed. Now, the truth is that the flexed budget, it is not a planning tool. No, it is not a planning tool. What do we mean by that? You see that we learned in the previous video The budget is a planning tool. It's used to make people, in itself, it's a plan financial estimation, all right? So that people can look at it to know what is to happen to them in future. But you see, flexible budget is not a planning tool, because flexible budget is done at the end of the period. At the end of the period. Now, if it is done at the end of the period and it is not for a planning tool, then obviously it is for a control tool, because you are going to use it to make comparison so that you can come to a proper variance conclusion. So it is not for planning, because it is not done at the beginning of the year. It is done at the end of the year. Why at the end of the year? Because it is at the end of the year we will see the actuals. All right, because you cannot see the actuals at the beginning of the year. So basically, that is what you see. So in terms of doing a flex budget to this thing, because we want to make a proper comparison, what we will see is that, okay, if we produce this 200 and it costs us 2,000, then it means that technically, if I divide the 2,000 Ghana cedis divided by the 200, the price for each one of this one is what? 10 Ghana cedis. It means that when we produce 200 cedis and the price is 10 Ghana cedis, it is going to make us incur a 2,000 Ghana cedis. So it means that our variable cost is 10. All right, if that is so, then when we multiply the 10 to this one, it tells us that actually we should be spending around this by this will give us 3,000 Ghana cedis. Have you seen that? 3,000 Ghana cedis. And if it is 3,000 Ghana cedis and we now do the comparison, can't you see that now we are comparing likes to likes? Because when we were here, we were comparing units of 200 to units of 300. But now that we have a variable cost, which varies with the level of production, and it means that every unit is 10 Ghana cedis. If we multiply, it means that we should be spending about 3,000. Now compare it to what you have here. What do you see? You see that there is a difference of 500. And now, is it adverse or favorable? Because you should be spending 3,000 Ghana cedis for a 300 unit. What you have done is to actually spend 2,500 units. So now you see it's what? Favorable. So when you use a flex budget, the flex budget has some advantage, because it is going to help you draw what? A meaningful variance conclusion. Variance conclusion. So have you seen that? So that is what a flex budget is for. So a flex budget is actually a dynamic budget. It is a budget that is dynamic and it adjusts based on changes in the actual level of activity and distinguishes between fixed and variable costs. Why? Because sometimes you will see that there is some of your overheads are semi-variable. And please, like I said in the previous video, if you have a semi-variable or a semi-fixed cost, what do you do? Because you see, fixed costs do not change with the level of activity. So you see here. And so one thing you must understand is that in flex budget, we only flex variables. And it is something we must take note of. All right. So that is that. So here, if you have these ones, remember the high-low method. We are going to use the high-low method to separate between the fixed cost and what? The variable cost. So take these 2 points very importantly, that in flex budget, we flex only variable cost. All right. And that, so you meaning that you'll be flexing your sales and your variable cost. All right, sales or revenue. Why? Because these ones, they change with the level of activity. With the level of activity. They change with the level of activity. But fixed costs are not flexed. Are not flexed. So please, as for fixed cost, just copy and paste it. All right. So basically that is that. So cost may be classified into fixed and variables. All right. So like I said, it gives you a meaningful variance comparison. Now, look at the steps. So in solving a flex budget question, you will probably be given in the question the budgeted information, then the actual information, then the variances. That is what you'll be given. Now, when you are solving, what you need to do is what we just did. So you also arrange your table like this. You will use your budgeted info here, and you bring in between the actual and the budgeted a flexed budget, which means that you are going to find the variable costs, all right, and be multiplying it to get the flex budget. Now you position your actual here, the actual info here, and you will do a proper variance by comparing these ones and these ones. All right, so this is where you have your variance. All right, so that is that in this column. So you just create a 4-column, then you do it. It's very, very simple. So that is that. So the steps are that: set up your original at the estimated level, so your original budgeted information, then flex the budget by adjusting the variable cost and the sales revenue based on the actual level of what activity. So that is what you will be doing here. Then you will compare what you've done to the actual to highlight your variance. If there is semi-variable, please remember to separate them using the high-low method. All right. Then when you are done with that, you maintain the fixed cost because fixed costs are not what flexed. Remember. All right. Then the others you flexed it. All right. So that is that. We've learned that fixed budget is static, does not change with the actual. Best useful in stable environment. Single level of activity limited, and it does not consider activity deviations. And we've also learned how these ones are dynamic and things. So the best thing for us to do now is to go and pick the question and deal with the question. Is that okay? So let's look at the very first past question that we have here, which is O2, and this is May 2019. O2 has recently opened a fast food restaurant in a small town. The fast food restaurants are characterized by quick food services. The fast food restaurant market in the town is dominated by a small number of long-established restaurants. O2 is seeking to grow the business. The performance report for the first month of the business to be presented at the restaurant's monthly management meeting. So it's to be presented at the restaurant monthly management meeting. The draft performance report is what you see there. And first, you are asked to explain a flexible budget. So I think now you can explain it. It's a dynamic one. All right. And remember, we said that it is not a planning budget. It is what? A controlling budget. And we have been asked, this is where we are going to look at to draft it. All right. So like I told you, so you can bring in O2, all right. So we are looking at the flexed budget, all right, of O2. So I told you that you just create a 4-column. You need your budgeted information. So the budget is here, all right. Then you need your flexed. Then you need your actual. Then you need the variance. All right. So basically that is that. So you are going to prepare another profit, but here you are going to compare it well because this is what they are having. Look at it. They budgeted 600, they produce 5,400. There is a variance, and you are to do the comparison. So if you take your revenue, we said that revenues and costs are flexed, fixed are not flexed. Is that okay? So fixed remains constant. Now we are looking at you producing the 6,000 units, and you having 180,000 cedis. Now, when we flex it, remember how we did it? We took the cost and we divided it by the unit, the budgeted one. So we'll say 180 divided by 6. That gives me 30. So in my flex, it is going to be the actual that I produce, which is 5,400 multiplied by 30. I hope you get it. All right. So it will be 5,400. So the price is 30, right? So this side will be 5,400 multiplied by 30. Let me do it like this. But you don't have to do that. You just have to punch it on your calculator. And you see that you have 162,000 for here. 162,000. And the actual is 167,400. So if you now compare with the actual of 5,400 versus flex of 5,400 versus this one, you realize that you actually spent lower. So the difference should rather be a favorable one. So you see minus 167,400. That gives me 5,400 F favorable. So that is that. These are what you are going to do, all right? It's just that if there is semi, you have to separate the semis, all right? So let's take away our direct material. So direct material is 48,000. Direct labor is 33,000. This is 48, 33,000. Then you have variable production overheads. So this is direct labor. Variable production overheads, that is 21. There is fixed cost. Remember, we don't flex fixed cost, right? Fixed cost is how much? That's 36,000. We don't flex fixed cost. We've already established that. So here will be 36,000. All right. The actual was 40,000. All right. So the difference will be like 4,000. Also favorable. Is that not it? Yeah. So that is that. No. Is it favorable? No, this side, this is fixed cost. So it should be adverse. This is not revenue that the actual is greater than then. So it will be adverse. So all the costs must be analyzed that way. Okay. So this one too, when we take 48,000, we divide it by 5,400. Oh, no. This one was 6,000, right? 6,000 units. So 48 by 6 divided by 6. That gives me 8. All right. So this side is 8. And I'll be multiplying that by the 5,400. You see, so this is how you should be doing it. Okay. By 5,400. So I have here 43,200. And what is the actual? 49,140. So if I now deduct 49,140, see, this one is, the actual is higher than this. So it means it's adverse. Have you seen that? You spent more than you should have. Is it 5,940? Adverse. So the same thing here too, you take 33. You just divide by the budgeted units. So 33 divided by 6, that gives me 5.5. So I'm going to multiply 5.5 by the actual times 5,400. That gives me 29,700. It's easy, right? What is the actual? The actual is 20. Do I see clearly? 27,000. So minus 27,000. That gives me 2,700. And this is favorable, is that not it? Because what do you have? You saw clearly that you are supposed to pay 29,000, but you spent 27, right? 21 divided by 6,000. Hold on. Is 21 divided by 6. That is 3.5. Then I multiply it by the actual 18,900. That is good. They spent exactly that. So nothing. All right. So this is it. You now can do your profits. All right. So how is the profit going to be? The profit before this thing was 42,000, right? And what is the profit here in the flexed? The profit here is giving me 34,200. Okay. Then the profit in the actual is also giving me 32,360. Then which means that this side will be 1,840 adverse. All right. So basically, that is that. Okay. So this is the flexible budget. All right. So just to confirm again, favorable. Yeah, that's it. All right. So this is how you do a flex budget. It's easy, right? How many marks? 7 marks. Then you are done. All right. You have other theoretical questions to answer in 2 ways. Explain why the original operating system was of little use to management. So these are the things that we discuss. All right. Why is this one of little use? Because it doesn't take into effect the changes that are happening. All right. So these are theoretical bits that you must go through. All right. And I've provided the solutions, of course. I will always provide you with the solutions. All right. So the reasons. Okay. So like I said, with no changes, because in a more dynamic environment, as you read in the opening part of the question, that was it. All right. So this is simple. Let's take another one and end with that. So we have another one here. And this one is December 2022. December 2022. Okay, so the same process we are going to go through. Of course, you have to deal with the theoretical bit for now. Let's focus on our flexed budget. So this one is for whoever and the quarter. So let's have our budget, our budgeted. Oh, why is the pen shaking? Let me see if I can correct it. Flex, actual, variance. The budgeted was for 6,000 units. Sorry, this is 7,200. The flex for 7,200. That is what we are going to do. Now, the question said that the budgeted fixed overheads cost in the semi-variable was 12,000. Okay, so it means that inside this, there is a 12,000. So we will take that one out and we will maintain the 12,000, but we will come and add the variable part to this one. So that is that. So we have sales. This is 120,000. You can put in your CD signs, okay? 120,000. DM, direct material, 30. Direct labor, 24. We have variable overheads. We will wait on that, and we have when you get your contribution, you are fixed, all right? So you can get your contribution and you can, but we are not doing nothing marginal or anything. So we can go straight away and do our fixed too, which we are told that it is the fixed overhead inside the variable is actually 12,000. That is what we are told. 12,000, which will not be flexed anyway. So 12,000. So they told us that the one inside. So it means that what is here, we don't know what is there because that is the actual for. So because if you remember when we solved this example, you were given an actual here for 40,000. Do you remember? So this is it, 40,000, and this is it. So we may have to find how fixed that part is. All right. So basically that is that. All right. So where are we? Okay. So here we are. Okay. Flexible budget for the second quarter. All right. So that's that. Now, so here we have 12,000. Now we, like I said, fixed budget is not flexed. All right. So that is that. But the variables are 2 now. So we will have to be doing a 2. Now watch this. The variable that is here is 12,000. All right. And there will be another variable, the one that I took out of the 30,000, which will be remaining 18,000. Is that not it? So you can combine them and put the 30,000. So that is that. So let's flex. Now, when we flex, this will be this to this. All of them is to that. So we have 120 by 6. That is 20. And if I multiply that by our 7,200, that gives me 144,000. What did we get? 140,600 for actual. So we've had higher than our actual. Is that not it? So which is not good news. 140,600. It is really not a good news that your actual is still below your flex. So this is an adverse. It's because it is revenue. All right, let's look at the costs. The profit here is 24. Let's just look at the cost. So this one to 30 by 6, that gives me 5. I'm multiplying that 5 by 7,200, 36,000. What is the actual? 39,600. So I spent more, which this is a cost, which is not good. So the difference will be like the 3,600. Yeah. Also an adverse. All right. So that is that. This one, 24 by 6, gives me 4. I'm multiplying the 4 by 7,200. 28,800. Don't forget all these things are cost. Okay. So the actual is what? 25,920. We spent less. That is good news. So a favorable of 2880. That is that. So this one, good. So now you can combine them and say 36. That will give you 5, and you multiply it by 7,200. All right. That so the joint here, my variable is 36,000. So that is that. Or you can decide to do this by this, which you will get 2 and multiply it by 7,200. That gives you 14,400. Yeah, it's actually 14,400. All right. So that is that. So it's either the question is trying to tell you that the variable, it says that the budgeted fixed overhead cost in the semi-variable cost was 12,000. So it means that this one has something like this. So it's that you do this and this one is a combined, but I have 14,400 for only this one. So let's see, 18 by 6, 3 multiplied by 7,200. Then I have another one which is 21,600. So if I add it to my 14,400, it gives me 36,000. So this is how it will be. Now, so if you like, you can decide to keep your semi-variable. Do this one and just, so if we had written semi-variable here, maintain this one. We knew that there is fixed inside it, but it's just good that we separate them. Is that okay? All right, so that is that. So the actual, in terms of this, we know that there is 12,000 inside this one. We know that there is 12,000 inside the variables. All right, that can, we need to break it out so that we can find the distinctions between the two. Yeah. So this side, that is 36. We need to separate them. So let's say this figure, we still maintain 12,000 out of that is fixed, right? If it is fixed, then the variable cost, this is 21,600, and we need to take the 12,000. So if I take, 34,600 minus 12,000, the variable aspect is 22,600, right? This is 22,600. Then I'm adding it to these variables, the actuals, which is 21,600. I get 44,200. Since we were not given varying unit for us to do the high-low method, that is why it can be, because sometimes the examiner can tell you that in this bridge, you see, these are the costs. These are the costs, but it didn't give you the unit at the highest and the unit at the lowest in terms of the budgeted for you to do high-low method. So this is the only way it could be. So now, if I now check this, so here will be nothing. I'm supposed to spend 36, and it's more, right? So 44.2, 36, 8,200. Favorable or adverse? I spent way too much, so it is an adverse. All right. So when you group these ones and you just add them, let's see. So the flex is giving me 31,200, 140.6, 39.6, 25.92, 44.2, 12, 18,880. That is that. That tells you that if I do this, it's still going to be an adverse, and my adverse here is much. It's like 12,320 adverse. So basically, there's that. So this is how you go through and do your flex. This thing was how many marks? That's why it's IMA. This thing was 14 marks. Basically that is it. So let's check it out. All right. So you see the approach differ, but the answer is still the same. All right. So what he did, what is done here is that this one is put together in the semi-variable. So here, okay. And this one will be split into the 14,400 that we had. So 14,400, and the difference will be added to this side. So that is what you see there. So you can check it out. All right. So basically, this is how a flex budget looks like. Thank you, and see you in the next video where we look at the budgetary controls. All right. So stay put. See you in the next video.